Welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, it's Thursday. Welcome back. It's Thursday. Time for another Hack the Box challenge, or not Hack the Box, Try Hack Me. Jeez, another Try Hack Me challenge. Today it is rated as a hard one, so we'll dive into that in a moment. Just a couple of announcements before we dive into stuff. Lots of stuff going on. You should see a lot more shorts, a lot more videos coming out. I have another one I need to get ready for this weekend, actually, and then we'll be good to go there. But next week is going to be a very special episode, a very special stream that I hope to do more often, where we're going to do a rework of someone who's looking to break in, who needs a little bit of help. So we're going to actually help them update their resume live, provide feedback in like put it together in a nice document so it's actionable for that person. So I'm just looking for ways that I can really give a boost to people looking to improve where they're at, what they're working on, and give them a better ability to actually break in, right? Sometimes it just helps to see it done. So we're going to do all that live, and I'm looking at maybe doing it once a month for folks. And I got some good suggestions today in the Discord channel. Speaking of, join the Discord channel if you want to hang out with me, ask questions, and get involved in the community as we grow it. So this is a for you type of thing. I don't know what you need unless you tell me what you need. So that's what the community is all about. And just having someone to cheer you on and actually know what you're talking about. So I don't know how many of you have significant others who aren't in cybersecurity, but they have no idea what we're talking about. So it's always good to have people that we can talk to. So just something to think about there. But anyways, yeah, we'll figure out how we want to do it, but probably like once a month, open to feedback on that thing. And we'll probably start doing like each week we'll have a particular thing we're going to cover. So we won't always do these try hack me things. I just happen to do them because I enjoy doing them while I'm working on some other things on the back end. So speaking of other things I'm working on the back end, we have a free course I'm working on. I'm hoping to get the initial drop of content. So it'll be the I guess the starter pack of sorts within the next couple of weeks. It's mostly there, a few more things to work out. And then we'll be dropping labs one after another for a few weeks. And then we'll finish it up with the capstone. And that will be the free course folks can do to actually get real lab, real project experience that they can continue to build off of. And we will, in fact, do that building off of it on the stream with additional videos, with additional challenges in the community. You're going to have everything you need to continue to build and play along with us. So that will be really cool. I'm actually super excited for the free course. Um, and again, open to feedback after it comes out, or after the initial drop, after people work through it. Let me know what wasn't clear so I can redo videos, redo stuff. But the whole course is going to set you up. So we'll be building a portfolio, we'll be working on your LinkedIn, we'll be getting your resume straight, we'll be actually doing stuff, getting you out of these videos, except my videos, right? They're very helpful. But getting you out of like just watching these videos of rating stuff and all that, and actually getting your hands on the keyboard with to build up knowledge, build up skills that are going to help you actually land the job. So that's the key here. All right. So I think that's it. Who is ready to dive into a lab? This is another blue team lab here. We may have some time left over for some other stuff. We'll see what's going on after we're done here. Maybe start another one up. We'll see. So without further ado, let's dive in and have some fun. Let me know if you're listening now. How's my audio? I switched things up. I got it plugged back into my Rodecaster. I did some tuning of the volume to hopefully eliminate some of the like weird stuff I was getting in my audio. Audio has actually been plaguing me for quite some time, and I am seriously trying to fix it. Life of a content creator. What can I say? All right, so here we go. Awesome. So Elevating movement, like the description said, is what we're going to be working on today. This is a fun one because this is part two to the Honeynet Collapse series. And so if you didn't watch the first one, go back and watch it. I don't know if I've already released it, but I'm releasing a standalone so you can just watch that piece of the content. But it is last week's stream, so check it out if you haven't seen it. That one is all Linux. This one is a Windows system. So the attacker has pivoted from the honeypot to a Windows system in the internal network. And our job is to do some incident response, forensic analysis of a Windows host and figure out what the attacker did and answer some questions along the way. So this is another premium room. So if you don't have a TryHackMe subscription, you will need one to do this. Relatively affordable. Not being paid to say that, but I think it is. It definitely beats standing this up and troubleshooting, although you will have issues now and then. The important stuff here is to make sure you start up your target box, and you have the ability to work it two ways. Either you can remote into it, or you can utilize their attack box situation to just start doing stuff on the system. I will tell you, and because I've been prepping better, also, by the way, I've been prepping better and I've walked through this already, that the last piece, and I'll have to think of a better way to do it. We might be able to stand up a share and do something with it, but the last piece is really hard to do without some additional configurations, but we'll get to that. I actually haven't solved that piece yet, so we will have to solve that together. So how about that? All right, let's read the introduction and start diving into the things here. So, Decept Attack is a fast growing cybersecurity company specializing in honeypot development and deception technologies. At the heart of their success are Deceptipots, lightweight, powerful, and configurable honeypots that you can install on any OS and capture every malicious action. Sounds cool, right? The internal Deceptitech network is organized around a traditional on-premise Active Directory domain with approximately 50 active users. The product platform, however, is isolated and hosted entirely in AWS. So this is a pretty modern creation of stuff, right? A lot of stuff in the cloud. You got some stuff on-prem. And this is what we're looking at. So if you look down here, if my mouse will scroll, we have this Deceptipot. So this is the very first one that we looked at. And this is number 2. So this is the one, the Windows host that we will be looking at today and investigating. So the attacker has done lateral movement is what it's called, right? If you're familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK framework, this is lateral movement when an attacker moves from one host to another. So this is a really key piece and something pretty much every attacker is going to do once they get inside a network. They want to figure out how they can spread, how they can get into different things. And we see this a lot with ransomware as well, actually. So the more they can spread, the more money they can ask for as part of their ransom. So it makes sense for their business plan that they have there. Alrighty. So down here at the bottom, we do have 3 users, Emily, Lucas, and Matthew. These will come into play in a little bit. Other than that, we don't really care about the rest of this stuff. But we do need to read this to orient ourselves as we dive in here. One ordinary morning, Deceptitech's entire network collapsed. Within minutes, all critical on-premise systems are locked down and encrypted. The IT hurried to restore backups while the security team rushed to their SIM, only to find the backups corrupted and all SIM data wiped clean. So basically, they're saying if this were the real world, we would expect to be able to pivot to our SIM and do stuff, but we can't. It's been wiped clean, and we must rely on doing forensics work on the actual endpoint to figure out what we need to do. This does happen. In a lot of cases in the real world, attackers are cleaning up behind themselves and things won't show up in the logs. and we have to rely on forensics work to be able to investigate further. Now, I call this area of expertise, and this may be my own word, but I've heard other people use it, tactical forensics, where we're not doing all that crazy file system stuff that you see in the movies. We're just utilizing artifacts that are on the host that can give us information quickly to help move the investigation forward. And that's very much what we're going to be doing today. Tactical forensics, not deep dive. I'm going to sit here for a week, wait for my scripts to finish running to tell me what I need to do type forensics, which is the boring stuff, by the way. All right, the next piece here. The room is about the second attack stage. As part of the external D4 unit, can you help Deceptitech perform a full scope investigation and explain how the attack continued? There you go. I'm going to check this one off. It says unauthorized. Did it kick me out? I hope it did not kick me out. That would be so annoying if it did. Nope. Okay. It's still cruising. Interesting. I've been having some issues with TryHackMe today. I don't know what's going on their end. All right. So here's the next bit of information. I promise I will stop reading shortly, but this stuff's very important. And I'm thinking I am providing a little context most of you don't have because you haven't done this in the real world. So that's what I'm trying to do. I am not, I don't know if you know this, but I'm not one of those people that just speed run these things. I'm trying to actually give you really good information and apply it to the real world so that they translate well. And this kind of stuff will pop up in interviews as well. So it's really important to connect the dots. And I'm never going to say I'm a guess at this thing. It's going to be, hey, we have pieces of evidence that are making it clear that this is the answer to this thing. Harem's in the chat. What's up, man? Well, thanks for listening while you work out. That's a really good place to do it. I like to listen to stuff, podcasts and stuff while I'm out running. So, hey, man, appreciate it wherever you're at. Hopefully, I'm descriptive enough so you can follow along in your brain and maybe go back and watch it and follow along in front of the computer at a later time. Cheers, dude. All right, so the next part here. Hey, Emily, when you're done with Deceptipot deployment, can you take a look at Serve ITQA? It became unstable after we replaced the motherboard, so maybe you can debug what's going on there. Following up, it says, while Emily worked on the issue from a local admin account, the threat actor continued the attack with the entry point secured and Emily's domain credentials stolen. So keyword here, Emily's domain credentials were stolen. This is very important information. They now wanted to explore opportunities for privilege escalation. Leveraging your knowledge of Windows forensics, can you uncover the elevating movement? So basically, our starting point is Emily. She's been compromised, and we need to follow the attack all the way through to where they basically pivot off of the system somewhere else. So that's what we're going to do. Right here, we can see the two. We see the Deceptipot and then the IT internal. So we ready to rock and roll? Hopefully everyone is caught up, feeling good, ready to learn some forensics. Now, there may be some of you that are like, I shouldn't learn forensics if I want to just go into the SOC. Yes, you should. You very much should. Yes, you probably won't be doing forensics as an entry-level SOC analyst, but it plays into your work and you have to know it to start growing and going up that ladder of a SOC analyst. So this, I think, helps build perspective, and you always won't have logs. Sometimes you have to go out and find additional information that will help you build your case. So just think about that. And that's actually what I love about forensics. This is the stuff I love. SOC analyst work it's okay. It's cool what you can do with the logs, but there is so much out there, so much information that doesn't get ingested into our SIMs that we can go out and grab and use to help in our investigation. The reason why, and you hear that a lot from people early in their careers, is why don't they just ingest it in the SIM? It costs money. When you get in big organizations, you're talking about terabytes of data a day in logs. That is a lot of storage. And most places are storing these things from 6 months to a year. So tons and tons of storage. And we're talking about massive networks in some organizations. So it just doesn't scale well to bring in all the logs, not to mention some of them are super, super noisy and will just cause a lot of contamination of just making it harder for you to find the important stuff. So that's a whole thing in its own right is working the logs, figuring out what we should actually be ingesting, a whole different thing. We can thank our sim engineers and log engineers for their efforts. Thank you. All right. So first question. Enough of me talking about that, but hopefully you're learning a little something, something. When did the attacker perform RDP login on the server? So this is a good question, right? So it's a very specific question, and we need to think to ourselves, where are, wow, my face isn't even on here. Sorry about that. I'm like looking into the camera, doing all the stuff I'm supposed to be doing, but you can't even see me. All right. So the when did the attacker perform the RDP? So very specific, right? We have two things here. We have a login activity and we have an RDP event. So two very specific things. And we have to ask ourselves, what type of logs will show not only RDP, but show a login via RDP? So many of you may be jumping straight to thinking like 4624s, which are normal login events. And we could do that. But there are very specific RDP events as well that we may want to look at first. So we'll use our handy dandy AI to help us figure out which ones it is. And I use it to show you how you could do it, right? To show you that you don't have to know everything. We have AI, let's use it. You're expected to use it now in the real world. While I'm doing that, we got Harem says there is a. Did you hear about Canvas cybersecurity breach and ransom? Canvas? No, I didn't hear about that one. I heard about another one this week that was pretty crazy there, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. Actually, don't expect me to think super hard tonight because I've been working a full-time gig and doing a pen test in the evening, so my brain is pretty shot. You get what's left, folks. You're welcome. Let's see. Let's go to Google. Let's see. What Windows when event logs have RDP events? So that's a pretty cool one. And tell us about it, Harem. What was a pretty bad one? It's a breach and ransom. I'm trying to remember. There was a software company that was recently breached. Is the one I was thinking of. Oh, DigiCert, I think was the one. I think it was DigiCert. Let me look that up before I say that on air. DigiCert breach because they were rolling their creds or something like that. Yep, yeah, it was DigiCert. That was the one I heard this week. Let's look up Canvas while we're here. Oh, I was thinking Canva, like the make pretty pictures and stuff thing. This is Canvas, something you guys use in college. Interesting. Oh, Shiny Hunters. Yeah, they're pretty prolific now. Wow. Wow, big one. All right, so back to this thing. So all I did was ask AI, hey, where can I find this stuff? And I definitely encourage folks to leverage AI. Pretty much you're going to have it anywhere you go now. You can't escape it. So get used to using it. I'm never going to tell you not to use it. You're being an idiot to not use AI now. It is augmenting you to help you so you don't have to have like crazy internal, like personal wikis like I had to have. And I have one. I actually haven't used it very frequently with AI. I don't have to look. I just ask AI here, and it tells me what the command is I need instead of looking it up because I don't memorize that stuff. So we have here's one Microsoft Windows Terminal Services Remote Connection Operations. So event IDs. These are the ones we're looking for. We need the actual IDs. So 1149 and 1024, these log IP addresses and connection successes. That sounds exactly what we need. This one is log session, login, log off, reconnection, and disconnection. So these could help as well. Outbound. So there's quite a few here that we could use. 4625s, 4624s. These were the ones I mentioned before. So let's do the first one. And this is actually going to work. So we're just going to say 1149. Okay. Let's see if we can't find it. Let me make my screen bigger for everyone. Maybe. Toggle. I forget which one. That's full screen. Is it this one? Nope. That one. There we go. That's it. Let me hide this so I can see around it. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do here is we need to look at RDP logs. And the important thing is it tells us exactly where we need to go. And this is important in win event logs, right? They're in certain locations. You don't have to worry about this if they're in the Sims, of course, but Microsoft Windows Terminal Services Remote Connection Operational. So let's see if we can't go find that. So terminal services, remote connection manager. Is that correct? Yep, that was it. Okay, cool. And then we're looking for operational logs. These right here. And then we're looking for 1149. So we can click through each one of these. There's 90 events, or we can filter them down. So we can say 1149 here, hit OK. So something to keep in mind here. So as an investigator in an event, you could pull all this data down and into your sim. And I'm going to tell you that this is actually missing quite a bunch of logs. And this will be the only thing we'll actually be able to use logs for some reason. But you would pull down every log on the system as part of your incident response process, as part of your forensics, pull all this stuff onto another system to work. You never want to work live on a system like this. This is bad. You're polluting the environment, making it a lot tougher, not to mention things are still running. It could be actively talking out. There's a lot of stuff going on. Hopefully it's isolated, might not be. But anyways, we would do this on a dead system in most cases, okay? Just to let you know that. All right, so the question is, when did the attacker perform the RDP logon on the server? Now remember, our user that was compromised is Emily. So we're looking for Emily in the logs. Emily in the logs. So we can just click through each one of these and see the user right here. And we're looking for Emily. Admin. Here's a user, but we can't see it. Nothing. No user. That's why we couldn't see it. No user. Admin. I guess those are all just blanks there. Let me rotate my camera really quick. All right. Just helps me be center of frame a little bit better. Trying to be professional for you folks. Trying to be. I'm not very professional. One day. All right. We're still looking through here. All right. So we have Emily Rose. This is our Ross. So this is 630. There aren't many events. There's a total of 27 for this specific event ID. So let's see if we have any other ones. There's some Matthew Collins. Here's one more. And that's it. So we have two. We have one on 620, one on 630. And what is the difference between these two? I wish that would have expanded a little bit for us, but it did not. So Emily Ross. So what we're looking for also, something to keep in mind, is that it told us where the RDP session is coming from. So we're actually looking for it coming from this IP. So a .239. That's the last octet there, because I'm not trying to memorize the whole IP. Not happening. So this isn't it. Let's see if our other one happens to have it. Here we go. .239. So this is indeed our answer. So our time is indeed 6:30:25, 4:33:16. And I'm going to grab this. I'm going to put it in my notepad. So I have recently found out that if you want your videos to do well, you can't show it putting it into the form or whatever on TryHackMe. So I won't do that. But you, if you're following along, you should be able to do it quite easily. So something to keep in mind, though, is the format here needs to be correct. So you do need to make sure it's following this format. So a little trick that you can do is look in the XML. The XML has the T formatting, and you can grab it there, right here. So this will be your time. So that is 1. Hello, if you're just joining us, say hello in chat. We are doing a little bit of forensics in TryHackMe today. So a lot of fun. Also, let me know if you're having trouble seeing anything, and I will make sure to zoom in for you. All right, the next question is, what is the full path to the binary that was replaced for persistence in privesc? Okay, so this is a tough one, but we do have some clues in the question. So full path to the binary. So we're looking for some sort of binary, so a DLL, an executable, that was replaced for persistence in privesc. So we're looking for, we could look for both, right? So the first one we could look at is persistence. And when we think about persistence, there are typically only a handful of areas where persistence would be. There's some really classic ones, such as scheduled jobs. You have startup items, certain registry keys, that the run keys, things like that, that they could be. Also, services could be a place. Those are your classic ones. There are definitely some other ones out there that I utilize myself, but those are your classic ones. So we would, as an incident response analyst, we would pull all those forensic artifacts and look at them one after another. The very first and very easy one to do is to look at schedule tasks. Okay. So we can do that. Let's minimize this thing right here and this one, and we'll look at scheduled tasks. So this is scheduled task. I don't know if you've ever seen it. You probably have if you've been playing around here. I know a lot of you folks are coming from an IT background. This should be pretty familiar. Schedule task scheduler. You can schedule stuff and have it run on boot, on whatever, right? You can do all kind of stuff with it. Like if we created a task, you could see like what's the trigger, we could do pretty much anything we want. So there's a lot of flexibility, which is why attackers use this, right? A lot of power here. So there's only 2 here. There are a ton of other ones in here, but this is kind of like the home page where we can see very specific ones. So this would be the first place you would check. So we have one here that says info check. Speaking of check, and the author is an administrator. So someone with administrator privileges did this. This says the system behaves wildly. So I will periodically run core info and collect the results later. Please don't delete core info. Emily. Now, what we want to do is see when this was created. And so this was created on 5/7. And then we see it was modified. Our task was completed on 6:30. So this is our target date of the incident. 6:30 is when it started. So whenever we're building a timeline out as an incident responder, we have to document everything because the dates matter, right? The dates matter. Let's see, erase this. So here is the date of when everything starts. Before that, we don't really care about because they didn't have a presence on the system. And this matters because if we can cut off hours of time we don't have to dissect, we're able to pinpoint attacks much quickly. So time is everything. It means everything. Having timelines mean everything. And a lot of folks, even intermediate level analysts, do a really poor job of tracking times and in what order events are happening and utilizing this to figure out what the next steps are, where the attacker's at in their attacker methodology. It means a ton. It limits options they have. It's great. You should be doing it if you're not doing it. So we can say start of attack. Okay. All right. So let's look in here and see what else has happened. So we see some execution times on 6:30. So let's see. Is this all? Let's do it in order here. 5757. So why is this 7-6 randomly jumping in? What a shame. All right. So here we go. So we see task registered. So a new one was registered at 4:59. So it's kind of interesting. Miss task, so 7-6. So this is before 5-7. Miss task, start rejected. So a lot of stuff happening on 5-7, and then I was looking to see if the task, like schedule task, was canceled or stopped at any point in time, but it wasn't. We just see a big jump and we see the first execution at 6:459. So if we look at our chart, it is not far after this, right? So first, I wonder if I can copy this. Here we go. So looking at this, and we're just guessing right now. Schedule tasks registered. But it definitely looks suspicious and it's in line with our attack. So if this occurred before, it'll be like, all right, maybe not relevant. It's happening after, definitely relevant. Or not definitely, definitely suspicious, right? We don't know anything yet. So let's get some more details here and see what's going on. So the other things we can look at are triggers, the triggers there, and then a start, like what is it actually running? So actions, it's starting this program. Okay, so we need to go here and see if we can get information about this program that will help us pinpoint it as the bad thing for sure. So we'll go over here. We're in Emily, and this is it. And what we have is the date modified was at 6:10. So this is the last modify anyways. So date created was June 30th, 4:57. So this is interesting. So right before, we're going to have to fix our times because you want them all to look the same. So normalization, data normalization here, folks. What the hell is going on? Why is it going that way when I hit backspace? That's wild. What is going on with this? I have no clue. This is bizarre. I don't know what's going on with my notepad. I'll have to reset this thing. So let's see if I can kind of fix this. There we go. And core created. Now, the last execution time is over here. So more than likely, because it was last accessed here. So that's interesting. This will come in handy with some other stuff as well. So I'm just putting items in here that are going to help. What is going on here, folks? I have no clue. Maybe we do cherry tree instead. I don't know why this is being berserk. Let's get rid of this. Let's open up a new one. Don't save. Hopefully I didn't mess it up. It won't let me. This is so bizarre. Sorry, folks. Super unprofessional. This thing is breaking on me. But that's okay. We'll get it fixed. All right. So let's that one's acting weird. All right. Is this going to help us? Okay, cool. Alrighty. So let's minimize this. And I want this. This is what we want. I have no clue, folks, what's going on. There must be some non-displayable characters that are being copied over from Windows that is just breaking stuff. Paste as plain text. And even as usually when you paste in these, and this was a trick I learned when I was pen testing, usually it will remove any of that stuff and it will save you. So we'll just manually type it. Save you from breaking stuff later. Core info 64, last access. So we'll clean that line up as well. Okay. So we have the start of an attack. We know when the file was created. We know when it was scheduled. We know when it was last accessed. Looks suspicious. Let's confirm that this file is actually bad, and we can do that. And I think it's going to ask us, sure, okay, leave me alone. And I think it's going to ask us in a second, like down here what the hash is. No, it's just going to ask us what the malware family is. But what we want to do is go ahead and hash this file, and then we'll look it up in VirusTotal, the handy dandy VirusTotal. So let's hash files with PowerShell, because I don't know this off the top of my head, but this will. So get file hash, and we can specify an algorithm. That works for me. So we'll open up PowerShell. New PowerShell window. This one's old. And we need to cd to our directory, which is users, Emily, there. And then get file hash, and it's core something. Oh, no, we need to go to documents first. See, okay. Maybe it won't do it now. CD documents, perfect. All right, get file hash. And I think it's core, here we go. Let's see what we get. SHA-256 is the default, which is fine. So we'll copy this, and now we're gonna take it over to VirusTotal. Like I said, VirusTotal is the classic. So this is going to tell us if this file has been seen before. Is it normal? Is it bad? It's just going to give us some cursory information that we can utilize to help inform our investigative steps that we're going to take here. Okay. So while we put it in here, it says sample appears to be a Trojanized version of Apache Bench. So it is bad. Bad, bad, bad is what it is. And we have things like Cobalt Strike, Interpreter. Who's saying that's Cobalt Strike? Alibaba. Okay. A bunch of different things in here. Trojans. So we know it's bad. Like almost everything says it's bad. So all the ones we care about, maybe not Dr. Webb. But most of the big ones identified as bad, which says, yeah, I think this was used as persistent. So we can pretty much say now that, yeah, they compromised the system, they dropped the file in Emily's directory, and then at some point they elevated privileges because it was created as actually they didn't have to elevate privileges. So as long as they didn't modify this, and this is something we look for in pen testing as well, as long as they didn't modify this pathway, right? If this was always, hey, run this thing in Emily's, and Emily was the one compromised and she has the ability to modify that file, that's it. That is your privilege escalation technique. Now you just replace the file and you wait for that scheduled task to run, and it executes whatever's in there. And so your exe, if it's a shell of some sort, it's going to call back, and now you have whatever access is there. And because this is running as administrator, right here, see, it's running as administrator. It's not running as Emily's account. It's running as the administrator. So the administrator is executing something in a user controlled space. This is bad. This is really, really bad IT work. But these are things that happen. These are things that we look for again in the offensive space. So this is indeed something that was used for persistence because it's going to run every time this runs, but then also privilege escalation because it's running as the administrator. So by doing this, they have now moved from Emily, a low level, maybe a low level user account, to a privilege, local privilege account. So this is a local administrator. So this is different than saying a domain administrator. Some of you may have heard that term. This is local administrator. Local administrators have no domain access whatsoever. So she only has administrator on the system, but it's a very powerful role to have on a system, and it will allow you to privilege escalate further into the domain, perhaps. All right, so let's see if we can answer this question. All right, right here. So what is the full path to the binary? So we have seen that in here. So we know it's whatever this is right here. So this is the full path. Okay, that makes sense. Our next question is, what is the type or malware family of the replaced binary? So we don't know without doing full analysis on it. We don't have all those tools on here either. So we need a way to be able to confirm that this is indeed one thing versus another. All right, so let's minimize this. We don't need it anymore, but we do need to navigate around and see what we have. So there are these folders here with PowerShell transcripts for different things. So this one has PowerShell output here as well. And we look through here, and I'm not going to waste your time doing it. We look through here and we just see really an output of the these scheduled tasks. Okay. So we could probably find ours in here. And this may be what was done under her. We could. I didn't look to see if it was in there. It's very, very likely. Info check. So let's actually look to see if info check's in there. It should be, I would think. Let's see. Info. Are we all the way down? We are. Info. I would do info check, but I'm afraid I might miss something. So we didn't see that in there. And it may be because it wasn't running at the time, but you would, from an attacker's perspective, you would expect that they would do this attack, right? We typically enumerate what's running to look for privilege escalation opportunities. All right, so that's nothing. But we did find that there are fancy logs in different people's accounts. So let's look at all the other users and see if we can find some other stuff that may be useful. So we have administrator, we have Emily Ross. This is the one we were just in. We have Matthew Collins and we have public. So they initially came in with Emily Ross. So we saw the one thing. And then if they privilege escalated, they would be right in administrator. So we could look in there, but let's look in here first to see if there is anything useful. PowerShell transcript. So this is just invoke expression. What's it running though? Actually, I haven't looked at these. Some stuff with SSH doesn't look particularly useful. And I'm just skimming it. Obviously, I would spend a lot more time looking at it in a real world, but I would move pretty quick though. I would check stuff pretty quickly to see if there's anything glaring that I can look at, and then I would go back and make a list of stuff that I would check in order that I think may be beneficial to the investigation. So I usually do a cursory look at all my stuff to see if there's anything that I can say, hey, this is a high priority. I need someone to look at it now, or I need to look at it now if it's just me. So did we end up in administrators? Where did we go? Okay, we are. And so we got a couple of things here. Now, this looks bad, right? So this is invoke expression. We see some base 64 strings. That's interesting, right? Because this is what attackers do. It's called obfuscation. So this is likely very bad, and we'll look at those in a second. I'm curious how many more we have. So we have a lot more here. I see. PowerShell. What else is going? We're just looking through here. Nothing useful in that one. So we know, excuse me, we have probably a bad one. So CD Emily Ross LS. So get file hash. So this is my stuff somewhat, or maybe they did it. No, it might be me. Emily Ross. This may be from when I did it before. Maybe. Because I don't remember seeing all these. Yeah, I think this is from me doing it before in preparation for this. Why is the time date stamp off though? Just checking here. Let me check the rest of these. Sometimes you break stuff. I should have shut it down and started up, but it was being such a pain today that I didn't want to shut it down before the stream. Again, I'm trying to be more professional for folks, and sometimes it just doesn't work out, but that's okay. All that looks normal. And we got two more maybe? One more. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go back here. So we have some malicious PowerShell execution. We don't know what it is, but we do know attackers do this all the time. They'll have an invoke expression, some base 64 string, and then usually something else happens. So it could be, and this is pretty beefy. So this could be doing a good chunk, but usually they'll do this with web calls where they'll pull down and execute something. But we don't have to go through CyberChef for all of this. We can actually use PowerShell to look at each one of these, and we don't have to worry about it executing. Again, I wouldn't do this on a real system, but we can be lazy and utilize it here. So if we just paste it in here, hit enter, it's just decoding it. It's not running it, folks. So don't freak out on me. Don't freak out. It's just decoding it. So all I did was copy the decoding portion of it. So I left the IEX part off, which is the invoke expression. This is literally just what was in there. So we'll do this for each one of them and see what's going on. But looking through this, we see essentially a library that's loaded in here, or a function rather, and it does some stuff, web transports. Okay, so it's downloading stuff. I like how that one is. User agent, totes legit, solid. And then we see some stuff related to Meterpreter. So this is very much the answer to our next question. What is the malware family? Meterpreter. Okay, and we can just look at that and see that. Now, we could also take that binary, do some reverse engineering with it, but we don't have all that access here. But we have enough evidence to say, yep, we see Meterpreter calls. Yes, it also lines up with one of the items in virus total that was mentioned. There was actually quite a few of them hit on Meterpreter, AVAS, AVG. Let's see, what did CrowdStrike call it? Just malicious. It's 100% confident it's malicious. That's fun. So those two line up. Cool. I would also ship this to malware reverse engineer, or do the reverse engineering myself if I had time. All right, so we're good there. The next question is, which full command line was used to dump the OS credentials? So we're going to go through each one of these and look at them and see if there's anything else of interest in here, okay? And we're going to do the same thing, grab everything but the invoke expression. We don't want to run it again. And we'll just dump it in here. And we'll see what it says. So TCP transport. So just looks like a little bit of other functionality for Meterpreter. Okay. And we'll go through, we'll look at this one. I know, very tedious. We could probably copy that, pull everything off, and do a little bit faster, but that's okay. It won't take too long. Invoke DC sync. So for those of you who don't know, if an attacker does a DC sync on your domain controller, they now have every password hash in that domain if it's successful. We don't see evidence that it was executed yet, but if it was successful, they have every password hash. Now, some of you folks who are new think that you have to crack your password hashes. You don't. There are techniques called pass the hash that essentially allow you to get a shell on a system utilizing the hash as if it were a password. So very, very powerful. Yes, they can crack them. Yes, there's a few other things you can do with them. But a hash, I'm telling you, I've been hacking for a long time. A hash is as good as a password to a bad guy. So very interesting if we do see evidence of this, and if you see this in the real world, obviously. All right, let's keep going. What else we got here? So we got they got some toys on the system. There must have not have been any EDR or even Windows Defender running, because all of this would certainly have been caught. Hello, if you're just joining us, say hello in the chat. We're just doing some fun cybersecurity stuff, and hopefully teaching some folks a few new tricks. So some more DC sync. And I got to get better at pausing when I do this stuff because it sometimes is a pain to cut because I just do things like this. I'm like working. I need to stop, talk, and do this. I'm learning, folks. I'm learning. All right, so we'll copy this one. We'll do it again. And we have another DC sync. So a couple of different functions, and they're probably used as part of a greater subset of code. So it looks like this is part Kiwi. So this may be the Kiwi module in Meterpreter. So that could be what we're seeing. So for those of you who don't know, Meterpreter is a pen testing framework that is free. It's in Kali. We can pull it up here, and we have done on other streams. And there's a bunch of modules that you can load into specific types of shells called Meterpreter shells, and it prevents you from having to like take a tool, drop the tool, run the tool. It's just run a command and it does it all for you. It just makes life a little bit easier. It doesn't work in the real world on real systems if they have EDR or anything on them, but in practice environments, it works great. And you can definitely modify it to get it to work in the real world. I have also done that. Just been lazy lately. All right, so here's another one. So this is interesting. This one just says MSF PowerShell interpreter set invocation point. Okay, so different, but not useful. And let's grab this last one. I have like almost copied IEX twice now. For shame. For shame. This is how places get compromised, people. Just kidding. All right, so here is an interesting command. So we have pcd.exe slash accept EULA ma -ma lsas text.text. So this is a different command. This isn't PowerShell. This is the actual execution of a command. And we actually saw this tool in one of the user's directories. So guess what we get to do? We could now hash this tool and see if we get a hit for it in virus total before diving down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out what it is. But I will tell you from my instinct as a practitioner, looking at LSAS to me means they're dumping credentials, which they can do as an administrator, a local administrator. That's why I'd say it is powerful. They may be able to dump LSAS that with LSAS, they can get domain administrator hashes or elevated domain user hashes that they can then leverage for lateral movement and domain privilege escalation. So very interesting. So we just have to figure out what that is. Let's see if we can't go find it, and then we'll hash it again. I think it was in. We'll close these out. We'll come back to them later. I think it's in our users directory, and we got to go back and find. We have to go find our person. So users. Wait, what was it? PSA? Nope. PCD. Emily. And I believe she had it. PCD right here. So we'll hash this just like we did before with this. So luckily we're in the same place. So get file hash PCD. Boom. We have our hash. Let's throw it in virus total. Let me double check real quick, make sure our machine isn't going to expire, and it is about to. It won't let me extend. What the heck? It logged me out. What kind of crap is that? For shame. I'm not a robot, people. I'm not a robot. Oh man. Now I have to start all this over again. Give me 1 second. Let me get this going, but feel free to drop some messages in chat and let's talk. Challenges. What is it? Honey something. No, it's elevated. There it is. Elevated movement. I'm just struggle bussing with Callie. Or not Callie, with TryHackMe today. Y'all must have done some upgrades or something that's jacking things up. We're in the room. It's active. There we go. Okay. We're good, folks. Calm down. We're good. We're good. All right. So just to refresh what we're doing, we have the hash here. Now we're checking to see in virus total, what is this thing? So we'll do the same thing. All we got to do is just search the hash. They make it nice and easy. This has been a golden standard for folks for quite some time. So it is good. It's not bad. Question is, what is it? Proc dump. So proc dump is indeed a tool that is signed by sysinternals, or it's not signed by sysinternals, but its description is sysinternals. This is Mark Rasinovich and Andrew Richards tool. Great authors, by the way. Read their books. It is signed by Microsoft, though. How about that? So it is a legitimate thing, but it can be used for bad things. So LOL bin, it's living off the land or living off of things at least that shouldn't be detected. I will tell you, if you did proc dump in the real world today with an EDR, it will be stopped. This won't work, but it won't be immediately detected on the system if you downloaded it. So something to think about. All right. So while we're looking at this and interpreting what we're seeing, so proc dump, which means it's dumping a particular process, and if we look it up, we can say proc dump command syntax. And I'm just doing this so we can get an idea of how it works, because if you see a tool, you don't know a tool as an analyst, you need to be looking it up, because the only way you can do your investigation well is actually understanding what you're looking for. If not, you're failing yourself. You're doing a bad job. But this is also the cool part of what we do, is that we're learning new tricks, new tools. So you should be very excited to dig into it and understand them. All right. So what we're looking for is, it says proc dump options, process name, so the process they're targeting, and then the file they're dumping to. So let's look at this to see what's going on. So proc dump, accept EULA. So this just says, yes, don't give me a pop-up, just accept it. -ma, here's the process, lsas.exe. So they're targeting this in memory. And then text.txt is where the file is going to. So that's the output. So basically a dump of the memory for LSAS is being written to disk as text.txt. Okay. So when we look at our command here, so yes, that totally makes sense for what they're asking. It says, which full command line was used to dump the OS credentials? Well, that's it. That is obviously it. 100%. We know that was it. Okay, cool. Now that answered, using the stolen credentials, when did the attacker perform lateral movement? So this is a tough one, right? This is another one we have to read into, and this may be a question we would ask ourselves in the investigation. What did they do with the credentials once they got them? Probably lateral movement, right? And when did they do it, and how did they do it? So there are lots of ways to do this in memory, especially if we're using stuff like Metasploit or Meterpreter and Cobalt Striker, any of these C2 platforms. We can do a lot of this in memory. But if we had a hands-on keyboard, which it looks like we do because we're remoting in, how would we pivot? So there's quite a few tools we could do. WinRM, PowerShell remoting. We could do PS exec. Those are all things we could be doing. So what we can look at is we can look in a place called prefetch to see what types of files exist. I will tell you the first thing I would typically do, just to show you because it's not here, is I would look for sysmon event ones or win event logs 4688s and something maybe in there. But in this case, there are 4688s, but our time frame that we're looking for is void. So we have 5/7. Remember, we need 6/30. They're not here. So something to think about. Oh, one thing we do need to do, folks, is this. If this has a time frame, so 1820, 1828:30, we need to update our list. 1838. I'm telling you, my brain is not working. 30. 38. 30. Credentials. And just fixing this up here. LSAS process dumped. Right? So we have, they got a shell, they dumped LSAS, and then now we're looking for lateral movement. All right, so let's go and look at prefetch. So prefetch is indeed a really good forensic artifact. So this is definitely something that I have used in the real world many of times. And I think it's right here. So prefetch. And essentially how it works is anytime a binary is executed, specifically EXEs, it gets recorded in prefetch. And I believe it's the last 10 get recorded. So the timestamps for the last 10 get recorded in here, and it helps you really paint a picture. And even if our logs are erased, we have that information in here that we can use to help rebuild our timeline of activity. So that's the amazing thing here. And the other amazing thing is if the executable exists, even if it's the same one, but it exists in different paths, a new artifact is going to be created in here. So if we had calc in the C drive and then we had it in the user's drive, we're going to have two versions of calc prefetch files in here that we can look at. The other great thing that occurs in here is that at the time of execution, the DLL, so the libraries that get loaded up at the time of execution, also get recorded in prefetch. Very cool thing. So this is useful if we're not collecting DLL logs, which we normally don't in a SOC environment. We can look in here and identify that side loading or source or hijacking has occurred with DLLs. So it's a pretty cool thing to look at. So I definitely encourage you to research this a little bit more and sit in here and play with prefetch more while you're working on this lab, right? I encourage you to stop just speed running labs, spend time exploring, taking notes, understanding what you're doing, getting a little bit curious, and documenting that journey. That is where the magic's going to happen in your journey into cybersecurity, is where you're experimenting, you're playing, you're learning stuff you didn't know before. All right, so let's look through here and see if we see anything that stands out. Of course, we would dump stuff. All this stuff would be pulled down during an investigation, obviously, so we can fact check ourselves later. And we're just looking for stuff that may stand out. So we're looking for me right now, I'm looking for things that could be used for lateral movement. So PS exec, it would be one of the things I'm looking for. Don't know what that is. That may be something I would look at. this is PS exec. So this is something that stands out to me as bad. So what we can do is we can now date modified 630 at 7:47. So this was actually modified during our time frame as well. So if we look at this in order of execution, if we see anything at 6:30, it is suspicious and things we should put at the top of our list. So all these seem pretty normal. That's it. That's it there. All right. So we should have also seen, and I don't know why it's not in here, we should have seen our dump as well. So I'm not really sure why that isn't in here. It should show up in here if they ran that command. So we said it was like PS something. I'm looking to see why that's not in here. So I'm not really sure why that's not in here. It should be. Literally any executable run should show up here. All right, so let's take a peek at prefetch with our tools that we have on this system. So we have a couple of tools that we can utilize. And so they've helped us out with Eric Zimmerman. So Eric Zimmerman is a classic tool that we would utilize for investigations, forensic investigations, because he solves a lot of the parsing problems that you would run into if you try to look at stuff like open it up in Notepad. It's not going to display well. You have to do some decoding, um, parse out specific fields, things like that. Microsoft doesn't make it easy to look at stuff, but this does a good job of it. So one of the things that we do want to look at is specific tools that allow us to view prefetch. So we can again ask Google, Eric Zimmerman tool to read prefetch. I want AI. And so it's PE command. So we can say PE command syntax. I don't know why it's kind of half behind our answer there. All right, so this is how we would utilize it to dump a file. So we would just say PE CMD-F, give it the file. So let's do that. First thing we need to do is we need, so I already ran the tool here, but we're going to do it differently. I dumped the whole directory, which is what I would do in a forensic case, but we don't need to. In this case, we're going to say, what was it? -F. So saying specific file, Windows, wrong direction, Windows, prefetch, and then we want PS exec. All right. So again, all we did was simply target a single file. And I'm just trying to find my command right here. So just for folks, in case you missed it, it's just pe command.exe-f, meaning file. And then we give it the name of the file, which is the psexec file that we're targeting here. Okay. And if we look here, we can see all kind of fun information. So we can see created on. So it was created on at this time frame right here. So psexec created. Let's see if we have a paste issue. We do not, but we do have a date format issue. Oops. Uh-oh. so terrible. Sorry, folks. Let's try this again. Do that. Do that. And we'll just say PS exec created. And the other thing in here, so not just creations, right? That's looking at it pretty narrowly. We also have last access, so and last modified. So your typical stuff. We have some really, really good information in here for you folks. And then you can see the directories reference, nothing in there that's apparent. Here are the files reference. This is where I'm talking about. You can see all the DLLs that were loaded. Now we're not looking for search order hijacking or any type of DLL attacks. I'm just pointing this out in case you are investigating one of those, you would see it here. Okay. And last run is the big one we want here, which is at 1914. So we're going to put that in here. Which doesn't really make sense. These times do not line up. What the heck? So it was created after it was last run. So maybe the prefetch, I don't know. These lines don't line up. I don't remember them being jacked up like this. So who knows? Who knows? But there you go. So we do have a time there. And so the question is answer format of when they did it. And it was the execution time is what we want to use there. So this is exactly what we want. So we put this in, we'll get the answer. We have one last thing to look at. So the last question is, well, before we get to the last question, okay, let's talk about our list here. So this is a pretty good roadmap so far. PS exec, I think is SVC first execution. This is messing up our timeline a little bit because these don't actually line up the way they're supposed to. Which, whatever. It's close enough. It's within 10 seconds. You're going to have some time skewing, so it's fine. But we have the start of the attack, so initial login. Then we have their persistence was created within about 24 minutes. And then we see that the persistence wasn't, but the file that they were going to use for persistence was dropped to disk. And then within a couple of minutes of that, they registered the new scheduled task. And then the last execution of that persistence and privilege escalation file was at 6:12. So about an hour and 12 minutes after the task was scheduled. And then this is where the data normalization is getting a little screwy. So we got to actually fix these. 7. Data wrangling is one of the toughest pieces of incident response because you're getting data from all kind of places with different formats. It's a pain. But anyways, so then we can see the LSS process was dumped within 26 minutes of them elevating their privileges. And then following that, we see that they had made their lateral movement within just over an hour later, they did their lateral movement piece. So a pretty well spaced out piece, so of about 3 hours ish. You could expect that probably like it looks a lot cleaner. There was probably a lot more enumeration going on the system. It's not that clean in the real world. Um, this is pretty reasonable. You have to be careful, especially these days as an offensive person, because there's so many tools and tripwires in place that they didn't have before. You have to move slow or you're going to get booted off the system pretty fast. So a lot of folks move very slow. That's why, like, typically you'll see a compromise occur. They'll wait dormant as soon as they have persistence for months. And they move so slow and you won't detect them for 6 months to a year. I mean, it's still a lengthy time frame. It actually may have been shortened up a little bit since the last ones, but um, yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? All right. Hello, if you're just joining us, drop a comment in chat, say hello. Don't be scared. We don't bite. All right, so this is the part I didn't do yet, which is the NTLM hash piece of this. And the reason why is I was trying to figure out how to get this off of the system. I was going to utilize Evil WinRM. I couldn't get it to work for whatever reason. It just won't connect. I could probably enable it. But what we could do is stand up a share that we can drop files in. So we can ask how to set up file share on Kali. We can set up a file share and move it down, because what it's asking us here is it's asking us what the NTLM hash is, which means we need to take that process dump and like actually extract the credentials like a real bad guy would to do it. I did try earlier to see if there was Google, like if it had internet access. I was just going to pull Mimikatz down and do it. You can't do that. So you have to get the file off the system. If someone else has a better path forward, I am all ears. But in the meantime, we have to create a share and pull it down. I said share, and it's like so dumb. Okay. So print working directory. Okay, so we can use Impacket to do it. Yes, I've done this method before, and we'll go ahead and, oh, it's actually working? It's not working. Okay. What we will do is we'll make dir honey, cd honey. Why not? And then we'll paste it here. And we just need to update this. That's cool. Actually, I haven't used it with a placement variable. And we may run into issues. I've tried to do an anonymous one before, and it just didn't work well. We'll do this, and we just need this IP here. And we're going to try to navigate and drop that file in there. We'll just drop any test file in there for now. I'm just trying to make sure it works. So we can utilize this. Is it dying on me? Shouldn't be. I should have plenty of time. Let's see if that works. It didn't work. Maybe it was lowercase. It was lowercase. Case sensitivity matters, people. So let's move this, make it smaller. See if it connects. So it's not actually calling back. It should have at least given us a signal. And I've had issues in the past where it wouldn't work doing it anonymous like this, and I had to do it with an actual password. So let's try it with a password. Use SMB server with password. So my whole system is acting goofy today. Maybe I got hacked. I just need to, it could also be just goofy stuff going on in the background. I have Claude working on a web application for me. Share, and we're going to stop this. We're going to say pwd, and we're going to copy that. We also may need to do it as sudo. Maybe. So something to think about. There, SMB will say test user, password, test. All right, so let's try this. It does have sudo, so that may have been the issue, is that we didn't sudo it. All right, let's try it one more time. So username, test user, test. Test. So this, oh, that was it. Here we go. It says user. Did it work? Didn't work. Did I use the right one? I did use the right address. Something happened here. But this isn't changing, which is concerning. Let's try one more time. And I think the domain is off. It tried to log in as a domain, but we should have seen something here. So this is why I didn't get it to work, is because I was running into issues. But this is pretty classic hacker stuff, right? Where you just got to find a way. Just make something work and you'll get it to work. So let's do this. Cannot access the share. Are there any details? The network name cannot be found. Why? And let's just make sure everything looks correct. SMB and packet server share. I wonder if there's something else missing. What we could do, I mean, there's another way too. We can create an interpreter shell for it and pull it that way. But typically a share's the easiest way. Let's see. It isn't finding the share. Is there a missing switch? Let's see. Conflicts. We're doing SMB to support. Let's do something real quick. Let's set up, and I'll do this. We'll do a Python tech m. We'll do this, and we'll see if we can actually access our print server. I'm just trying to determine whether it's being isolated where it can't reach out. Then you have an issue. But if it's not isolated, you should be fine. We just need to make sure we're on the right port here. No, we're good. So we can pull files down. It's just struggling to access the share. I wonder if I can do it in here. No, it can see stuff, but oh, I bet it was created with sudo and it can't see anything. That's funny. cd chmod 777 honey. Okay. And we need to add something into honey. So ls cd honey ls touch test.txt. All right, so let's see if this works. Oh, it's there. So question is, how do we drag and drop files? Let's drag and drop a test file to see if, I don't think you can drop it through the browser. I've never tried. It doesn't. It doesn't. Okay. Let's just take this and try it over here. We just need to clean it up. There we go. Okay, it's working now. Okay, great. All right, I don't know what the heck was going on before, but it works now. So just testing stuff, man, I guess. Figuring out sometimes the old magic works. Okay. So the next thing is we need to find the file. And I know we're like all over the place at this point. So here we need to find this file, which is C Windows System 32 text.txt.dump. So C Windows System 32, and then we need to scroll down to T's. Right here. Here's the file. And so what we should be able to do is do that. And now just be able to copy, paste. Look at that. Magic. And we should see it pop up over here. And we do have it. So now the trick is we have the file. How do we extract credentials? I'm glad you've asked. This is where we put on our black hats, our offensive hats, and do what they would do. And you may be asking, well, what do they do? Okay, so we can ask Google, how would you extract hashes from a LSAS dump? And we can look. This jumpy stuff is driving me nuts. So PyPy cats LSA mini dump in the name of the dump. That's pretty straightforward. So we're in here. So we're going to say just actually, let's just make sure PyPy cats is in here. PyPy cats, it is. Okay, cool. So we have the thing. It's preloaded in the Kali apparently. And then we just need the name of the file, which is text. And we have all of our stuff. So this is what it looks like when you extract credentials. It looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Let's go to the top and let me talk you through what a password dump looks like. I haven't done one of these live in my own lab because I don't want you to have my credentials, but I'm happy to do it in a fake lab. So we got to remember too, let's look at this. What is an attacker looking to do with this LSAS process? So they have local admin, they're looking for other users on the domain that they can utilize to hop around. and cover up their trail and make it much more difficult for defenders to find them and stop them and kick them out of the network, most of all. So that's what we're looking for. So we don't care about Emily. The attacker already has this. So we don't care about that. And also, FYI, in some cases, you'll find plain text passwords in here as well. It depends on the type of credential. So we don't care about those. We don't care about these as an attacker. These are not particularly useful in most cases. Sometimes you can utilize hashes for systems. So these are machine accounts. So machine accounts typically aren't that great, but sometimes you can use them with some funky AD attacks. So we're going to scroll through here, see what else is in here. Not a good one. Machine account. Matthew Collins. Here's a new one, and we can see it's on the Decept domain. And so we have the NT hash. So we could actually pass this hash as this user and bounce around as them to another system. So that could be it. Well, that is the one we're actually looking for. We're looking for Matthews. And that's a question. Right here. So that's the question. But let's see, because we're on a journey right now. We're looking to see what else is in here. So these master keys, they're a good time. You can do some fun stuff with it. The Pappy keys, these are really good as well. But most of the time, your people are just going to take these NT hashes and roll with them. And that's the ones that are going to be used as a pass the hash. But the Pappy allows you to extract credentials. I think those are the specific ones for browsers, if I remember correctly. Again, I'm half asleep, so don't expect a lot out of me. I was hoping to see some actual plain text credentials in here to show you, but we might not have them in here. And here's the domain, here's the administrator. So this would be a good one for them to also take. So they would want to take this in case they needed to, in case their access was lost on the system, right? For whatever reason, they cleaned up and maybe the schedule task isn't working. Well, if they have the NT hash, they could very much likely log in as the administrator, maybe not remoting if they have it turned off, but they could utilize this to get a shell with like WMI exec or PS exec, something like that, and then set up RDP and then RDP into the host and then reestablish all their access and stuff again. So there's a lot there. So they would definitely want this. And not only that, one of the tricks I like to do as an attacker in an environment is I'll take this and I'll relay it across the network if I'm pen testing, because it's more smash and grab when you pen test. I'll spray it across all the systems to see if they've reused local accounts. And I will say you have a more than 50% chance to find another host with the same with the same admin local administrator credentials, which means you can pop to another system, dump credentials, and move on. That's a really quick way to elevate privileges. Once you get one, they usually fall in pretty short order. So something to think about there. We have some goober in chat at the moment. So check that out for some entertainment. But I think that is likely it. Like these, you wouldn't ever use this for anything. At least I don't know of any way to utilize it. Same with this, not particularly useful. Same with this. So these are, I don't know how you could utilize them. Maybe there is a way. If you know a way, let me know. I'd love to learn. Love to put another trick in my tool bag. But yeah, that's it. So this is how an attacker would do it. So a lot of what folks have been doing in the offensive world is they'll do a dump and they'll do a corrupted dump on the victim machine. And that is to prevent the defensive tools from preventing it. And then they will pull it down, fix the corrupted dump, and then dump credentials in this way. And like magic, they're done. So, how about that? Hello, if you're just joining us, say hello in chat. So, with that, that is your last piece of this puzzle. And we can call this one complete. So, that would be number 2. Next week, what we have going on is that we are going to be doing a pretty much a cybersecurity makeover for a listener, for someone who is I think, yeah, there's a subscriber there, follower on, I think they found me on Instagram, and we're going to help them improve their brand a little bit and hopefully land some more job interviews and crush those interviews as well. Speaking of, 2 different things, right? Just because you get the interview doesn't mean you're going to kill the interview. It's 2 different things you're training for, really, right? We are doing all these labs. We're fine tuning our resume, our LinkedIn profile, all these things to get us that interview. Boom. So if you're getting interviews, we know all that's working. If you're getting interviews and you're not passing interviews, then we know your interview skills need some work. So we could work on your interview skills. And yeah, between those pieces, you should be good. I think most folks are having the toughest time with their resumes, and it is pretty tough to get a resume through all these layers that are out there. You have the initial ATS system or AI resume parser that you have to get your resume through. It has to match. And then it's got to go into the hands of the recruiter, who then looks at it, gives it a final look, and says, yes, this person's good to go to the hiring manager's hand. And then you have to pass the eyes of the hiring manager in order for them to interview. So it goes through a lot of steps. I don't know if you folks know that, but there's a lot there. There's a lot, quite the journey your resume makes it through. And so you have to design it with all these things, because you can't switch it up as it goes through the system. So when we're talking about resumes, and we'll talk more and more about them in the different videos we'll put out, the different live streams that we do, you need to make it basic enough and plain enough that you're not going to have it get corrupted as it's going through the ATS system. So a good way to check that is if you use your resume to pre-fill out a form and it's all messed up, that means systems are probably not parsing your resume well. That's a good indicator that you need to minimize the formatting a little bit more. So just a tip there. And then you need to make sure that the grammar sounds good. You're not missing any punctuation. Everything is consistent spacing, because that's going to get it through the HR manager's hands and into the hands of the hiring manager. So this is just a look. Hey, do they actually have good attention to detail? And then when the hiring manager looks at it, so this is the cybersecurity person, the person actually in the field, then they're going to say, hey, is there enough stuff on here that is going to make it easy for me to onboard this person? So lots of things for you to look at when you're fine-tuning these resumes. And I am looking to bring one up right now so we can talk about it. Let me actually redo this time, because I want to mark my answers off after I get off the stream. I want to mark them off so I can get go up in the ranks or whatever. I don't know. Let's see. So I have a screenshot here, and I'll just use this other person's resume, not to beat up on Angela. But yeah, you just want to make sure you minimize formatting. Like this box is one of those things that may jack up formatting, may jack up how the readers are reading it. This could do it as well, having these over to the far right. I've had commas in certain areas, like these parentheses, that may jack stuff up too. So you just have to really, really be careful because you obviously don't want it to not even make it to the hiring manager's hands or the recruiter's hands. The other thing you need to pay attention to, and I'm just filling time because we got about 15 minutes. I don't want to hop off here early, although I could use a nap. I got to finish up some reporting. So I do have more work to do tonight. But what I want to do is pull up. This is all near me. I don't know. We can look 10 years. Jeez. 10 years for a stock analyst? Get out of here. I wonder what they're paying. I bet they're paying like nothing. Some people are wild with their job descriptions. No, they don't have it, but interesting. Okay. I'll stop. Junior, cybersecurity. Maybe this. IAM. That is not what we're looking for. Tech systems. 2 years. Minimum of 2 years. Okay. So what we want to do is in our resume, we want to steal some of their language that so that it matches and it gets through the ATS system and through the AI parsing stuff. So things like continuous security, like some of these words we can still analyze, security alerts, things like that, or MITRE attack. You could throw that in there under keywords. I'm trying to see what else is in here. Is there a better one? Striking out right here. So these are good ones. So required skill qualifications. You want to get as many as these as you can in your resume because that's what's going to help you. So yeah, here's MITRE attack. I was looking at the summary, so it's screwing me up. If you have dashboard creation, you could do that. Palo Alto, Cortex, no one's probably going to have that if you're new. You're probably not going to have that either. If you've done IT, this is where you can show off your skills as a Linux network admin. If you've done any networking whatsoever, you can do network design that can go in yours. You're not going to have all these. And I definitely do not encourage you to put stuff in your resume that you do not have. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot on the interview. But if you have this stuff, put it in there. Hey, I've used IPS, IDS. I've done whatever. Let's see if we can look at some other ones. Let me take a drink break here. Hello, if you're just joining us, if you're creeping, say hello. Let's see. They have a SOC coordinator for 60 to 80. That's like entry level almost rate. 1 year of experience. There you go. If you're in South Carolina, maybe. Hello, MDMA. Isn't that a drug? Welcome. Thanks for joining. We're just looking through. I'm trying to show some examples to folks of things I've been seeing in resumes lately that are really hurting them. Trying to make sure you guys and gals out there, I know there's not a ton out there in the InfoSec space, but we appreciate you, those that are. We want to make sure everyone gets a shot. There aren't a lot in South Carolina. South Carolina is really tough for cybersecurity. There aren't a ton here. Let's see. Victoria's Secret. I saw that one. SOC intern or analyst internship. This would be a good one, maybe. Here we go. There's nothing in here though. Oh, man, people. But I think some of it's Google that's just doing a really bad job parsing stuff. So we do have a question. I do have a SOC internship here. Harem, and thanks for staying this whole time. I think this is the most that you've been able to hang out with me. Welcome. Harem is asking, should I add labs or like a final project I did for my cybersecurity class. So I would not add the individual labs unless you don't have many. If you've done a ton of labs, I would summarize the major things you're learning in your project. So one of the key things here, Harem, is you need a master resume. So it should have all the details about the projects, the labs, all that stuff in there. And whenever you are applying to a place, you say, "Hey, take my master resume and match it up to this job." And so that way it can select the bullets, select the pieces that make sense for that job. Now, a lot of the way I've been seeing people do projects, I don't like, and I don't think it's doing well, which I think is echoing what people are saying, because they're not getting interviews. But let me see. I'm trying to pull one up. Like this one from the other week is one of them, but everyone's doing it this way right here. So these people are putting these projects, and they're short projects. They're really just labs, and they're putting them in here under experience. But imagine this was just in a project. They don't really match the SOC analyst role, which is what I've been reviewing these for. So I guess answer one, they need a match with the role. So if you're doing SOC, they need a match something directly applicable. I'm not talking about like kind of applicable. If you squint your eyes a little bit, you could say, "Oh yeah, that could be useful." No, directly applicable projects. Now, two, we also don't want to be so narrow in how we talk about these. Like these are super narrow. Created AI agents for threat hunting and automatic remediation using logs as the data source. If you were a hiring manager, would that stand out to you? Would that make sense? Does that sound like a learning journey? Right? Like your job is to convey that what you did in that lab or what you did in that project is directly applicable and has made you a better candidate. That's what you're trying to apply there. So the hard part I think most people are going to have is fine tuning these bullets in a way that are really going to knock the socks off the hiring manager, because that's what you want to do. I think a lot of us have gotten used to being pretty lazy with this because it hasn't been as competitive, but it's very competitive now. So just spend some time and shape a story, right? You're like, think about this, right? You're an author building a narrative, painting a picture of what type of candidate you're going to be if you were to be hired. So take that into consideration. So should you add the labs or the final project? Your final project, I would say, if you have a good one, should tell a story about your journey. What did you learn? How did it change you? How did it make you a better candidate? If it's just a lab and this is and I will die on this hill. If you did a lab and all you did is just follow steps one after another, and it was just mindless, like you're not very intentional with the learning opportunity, you're not really doing anything, right? And it's not directly applicable. That is a bad lab. That is a lab, and you should be doing, if it's something useful, you should be doing a project around it. So, for instance, TryHackMe, right? We do a lot of stuff where we are working in a sim, where we're doing searches and stuff, which is cool, right? That's basics. But how do we take that further? How do we take that to a place where it shows that you are job ready? So it could be, hey, look at this portfolio of refined searches that I have in Splunk, so that when I go to your job, I can go in there and I'm working. All I got to do is figure out what type of log sources you have. Here's my queries. Here's my logic for a dashboard where I'm hunting for whatever it is, right? It could be brute force. That's an easy one. It's not the great. It could be beaconing activity. That beaconing is a problem a lot of enterprises haven't solved. That's a really cool one, but it should have some sort of awe factor to it, right? Some kind of shock factor to it, um, because almost like using this as an example, almost all of them read exactly like this. you have to figure out how to stand apart, Harem. You want to be able to separate yourself from the crowd, and you want to have a shock factor for the hiring manager. These labs, again, need to be written in a way that the recruiter can say, yeah, that sounds kind of right because it matches the job listing. But then when it gets to the hiring manager, like, oh, this looks really cool. I actually understand what this person's talking about. This is great. I want to interview them. So again, you do need to write it at all levels. It needs to be applicable because your recruiters, what most people don't realize is that the recruiters, they're not experts in their field. So when you start using fun language like STIG and um, EDR or NSG, things like that that aren't in the job listing, they don't know. They have no clue what you're talking about. So it's always good to write out acronyms if you have it, or try to explain stuff if you can. And I know I'm telling you a lot of different things to do. You still have to also figure out how to squeeze it in that space without making it look cluttered. There's a lot of balancing going on with these resumes. That makes it a whole endeavor in its own right. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question. A long-winded explanation that allowed me to eat up some time. I definitely appreciate the questions. Anyone else in the audience? We got a few minutes for questions. Drop some questions in chats. Also use this as the opportunity to say, hey, if you're not subscribed, if you're not following any of that cool stuff, make sure you do it. Join the community. We're on Discord. You can hop in there, ask questions, drop your resume for a review, tell us about your wins, things like that. We're here to support each other, keep each other motivated. There are going to be tough days as you're breaking into it, frustrating days. And sometimes you just need someone that's having a similar experience or who have had a similar experience to make you feel a little bit better about the situation. What else can I say about the stuff? I don't know. I'm hoping so after, or rather as part of the initial drop, we'll have some resume templates, some portfolio templates out there so we can help people orient these resumes to a place where they're going to have that shock factor. And my goal is to ensure that you folks do not all look the same. I don't want people just copy and pasting from each other where one resume looks exactly like the other resume. Everybody has different skills, different backgrounds. That's what makes you special. That's what you need to lean into. What makes you different, the things that you know that someone else doesn't know. That's going to help you stand apart. And it's going to be good stuff. Really is. Yeah, I'm trying to think. What else? What else? Here's a good way. This is a good example of where you may want to piece stuff together, where you just do try hack me like sock level one, like if you did pathway, put in here all the major milestones, the types of things that you did and learned. Um, I would do that versus doing the individual courses. But if you're not done with the pathway, maybe you do the individual courses. This is also where I like the idea of the portfolio, because a portfolio, you can have all your individual courses. We just have to get them interested enough to go to your portfolio to see all that stuff. So, folks, if you are hesitant about doing a portfolio, be hesitant no more. It is a really good way to show off what you've been doing. Just like your LinkedIn profile is a expanded resume. So if they're interested enough to go to your LinkedIn profile, they're going to learn more about you. So all these encompass what your brand is. So these are what people are seeing about you out in the world. So your HR people, your hiring managers. So these are all really, really good things. And you just need to make sure they match, they're in alignment, they're telling the story that you actually want to tell. And that is the hard part. You have to figure out how to tell your story. And until you do, you're probably going to run into some issues. Also, why some people do a lot better when they're in person networking. They have an easier time getting interviews because they can tell their story a little bit better in person. The the listeners have an opportunity to ask questions and kind of coax them on and coax the story out. I actually spent a lot of time in interviews coaxing the stories out of people because they didn't tell their story well, or revealing where they lied in their story quite a bit and misled, and they didn't do all these things they said they did. But that's what the interview is about, is coaxing things out. If I believe you're a good fit and you just didn't do it a good job in there, I'm really going to give you a lot of opportunity to help me out, help me understand who you are as a candidate, as a hiring manager. With that, that is a wrap. I see we have quite a few people. Hello, everyone joining us. We are here every Thursday starting at 7 o'clock for a couple of hours. We cover technical stuff. We did a lab today and TryHackMe. We talked a little bit about resumes. Next week, we're doing a makeover for a follower from Instagram who we're going to help them get their resume better. We're going to help them look at their portfolio, whatever we need to. We're going to get them in a lot better spot, give them some firm, solid things that they can do to be in a better place and hopefully start getting some more interviews. So with that, we will call it a wrap and I will see everyone next week. Take care, everyone. See ya. Good luck.